Thank you so much for the warm introduction. Before I get started, I know firsthand that you can't organize an event like this without the support of volunteers, of staff, of MCs. So please join me in a round of applause for everyone who's working here this morning. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning. 9 a.m. It's a bit rough. My name is Stéphane Boisvert. I'm the CTO at XWP. It's a pleasure today to take all the credit for the work my team did, working with a great client of ours, our media. I'll be guiding you through the story of how we partnered with our media to modernize their publishing ecosystem. We're going to explore the challenges they faced, the solutions our teams implemented, and the honestly pretty incredible impact this project had on their business as a whole. So let's dive right in. So let's start with the basics. Our media is one of Australia's largest digital and print publishers. Over the years, they've grown to become Australia and New Zealand's leading multi-channel publisher, connecting with 9 in 10 Australian women every year. And don't worry, they're working on getting that last one on board. Many of you are probably familiar with many of these iconic brands, such as Better Homes and Garden, Women's Weekly, Women's Day, Marie Claire, and many, many more. So let's start by working on the challenges that our media faced, starting with the CMS. Now, I want to be fair to Umbraco. Umbraco can be a really solid CMS, especially if you're already deeply invested in the .NET ecosystem, or if your idea of a wild night out is debugging C# code at 3 in the morning. But even if that is your jam, we have seen some reoccurring pain points that our clients have run into time and time again. And those make it suboptimal as a platform for publishers. The first one is pricing. Umbraco, like many other things, starts out pretty cheap. But along with hosting, there's licensing costs, support plans, and it gets pretty expensive pretty quickly. And unlike WordPress, there isn't really a huge ecosystem of hosts, many of them in the sponsor booths, providing you with hosting options. But it's not just the ability to find affordable hosting. Compared to WordPress, Umbraco has a much smaller ecosystem and a much smaller community, plugin marketplace, etc. And so this really limits the number of ready-made extensions and integrations that are available. And that leads to more custom development, even for simple features. And like I mentioned, Umbraco requires .NET and C# expertise. These skills can be harder to come by, and they often come at a premium. So you're likely going to face higher development costs over the lifetime of the whole project. And finally, the backend interface, we've heard from editors that it's less intuitive. This slows down editorial teams, and they need to move fast to get content out the door. But CMS was not their only problem. When we first met our media, they were operating a patchwork of standalone sites, each managed in isolation. So this created a big headache for both the editorial team and the development team. When a brand wanted a new feature, it wasn't actually automatically transferable from one site to the next because they were all running slightly different code bases. So this led to a lot of duplicated work. And as you can guess, with that amount of sites and different code bases, ongoing maintenance was getting pretty costly. You know, each site demanded its own set of updates, its own set of patches that were slightly different from one site to the other, and its own slightly different bug fixes. And the more brands they had added, the more complex the entire ecosystem got. And this siloed structure, it made it impossible to take advantage of innovations that one brand did and quickly apply it to other properties. So as you can expect, this also had just negative impacts on their business as a whole. our media found themselves spending more time on maintenance than on innovation. New features, they were slow to roll out, and it really impacted their ability to respond in a quickly changing market. And all the publishers in the room know already that audiences will go to the sources that push out high quality content the quickest. But their existing setup made it really difficult to achieve this. So I mean, this is a WordCamp, so you all knew this was coming. We're going to talk about the shift to WordPress. When our media came to us, we knew that they needed not just to solve the technical problems that they were having, but we needed to help them improve their ways of working to get real, tangible business results. At the bottom line, that's what counts. We needed to create them a platform that would empower our media to respond to the ever-changing needs of their readership while lowering costs and driving revenue. So the centralized platforms we built with a shared code base really transformed their development practices. It streamlined troubleshooting, it reduced duplicate work, and it increased productivity for the developers. And for the editors, it also meant that when a bug they had reported was fixed on one site, it was actually fixed on all sites, which we heard was a big pain point. Similarly though, when new features were built, they could be enabled selectively on each site, dramatically reducing development time and code complexity. By leveraging parent-child themes, we created a custom look and feel for each brand. And this also allowed us to customize each feature on a per-site level with the use of filters while still keeping the core functionality shared across all sites. So this meant that each brand could have its own distinct identity and unique features while still leveraging the shared infrastructure. But let's bring this back to cost, right? In the last 2 years, everyone knows the market's changed. Publishers are really being squeezed by diminishing ad revenues. Search, discovery traffic, it's all down. And with the rise of AI, publishers, they're not just looking for new sources of revenue, they're looking to cut costs. So WordPress, with all the benefits we just covered, meant that they could lower their overhead costs while sharpening their focus on reader experience. Ultimately, the speed and the agility of WordPress allows for faster market changes, for responses to faster market changes, and really it gives our media a strong competitive advantage in the marketplace. Our media wasn't able to be here today, so I'm just going to read out a quote from Lauren Honeybrook. Investing in a partnership with XWP elevated the hope that it was possible to run a massive business project alongside our need to maintain our existing business as usual stability and boost our confidence to complete the mass migrations in a short turnaround. And I think Lauren's quote really underscores how partnering with an agency, such as one that's part of the Scale Consortium, like XWP, really provides publishers not just the technical expertise they need, but also the assurance that their everyday operations are not going to be derailed. So we went over some of the challenges, the fragmented systems, the costs, the maintenance, the slow feature rollout, the business impacts, and we went over some of the benefits of the new centralized, flexible, cost-effective WordPress solutions. So let's move on a bit to the meat. How did we get this done? The first thing we did was plan. For projects like this, folks, you have to plan. And I'm not talking about some abstract, pie-in-the-sky, abstract planning. It needs to be active planning. And so this means that, yes, while you do a deep dive in the sites, you do write out all of the requirements, you need to prototype. So while auditing content, while listing out features, while figuring out the business objectives, you don't just write them down. You need to prototype how you'd solve these things. And what that active planning does is it means that you won't find out 3 months down the road that the way you thought you were going to build out this feature, this functionality, doesn't work. You learn it early during planning when you can change it quickly and at a low cost. This type of discovery process really ensures that you're able to focus on the high priority impact items first, while still knowing that you're not going to have any surprises down the road. What we did is we then just repeated this process for all of the sites. We also introduced a unified design system. And so this enabled us to have consistent user experiences across the sites. And we created a framework that the future sites could leverage. And we built this into a foundational parent theme. And using child theme, we implemented each brand's distinct look and feel. We decided to migrate one site at a time, and we chose Home Beautiful as our first site. The thought was really to use a mid-traffic site, validate our approach, refine our processes, and really to like slowly build confidence with the client's authors and editors. But after the first launch, it was such a success, they immediately decided to move up the timelines and move Australian Women's Weekly, the company's flagship brand, next. As we went along, the template repository we created grew continuously, giving new sites access to proven, tested components. And this included everything from articles layouts to recipe blocks. And as we built ones for new sites, they could become available to existing sites. These templates could be easily lightly customized per brand while still sharing the same tested foundation. And this approach, it created a sort of snowball effect of efficiency. So later on, sites launched faster and faster as we went along. We did have a few challenges along the way. Some of these are common to large-scale replatforming everywhere, and some of them are specific to our media. So let's walk through a couple of those. First, and this one is common for all large-scale platformings, we needed to ensure a smooth migration without having any downtime for the brands. We had an aggressive schedule calling for migrating approximately a site a month. So what do? You create lists. By using stakeholder checklists, we were able to guide the brand stakeholders through the migration process. And this ensured that they were not just ready, but they were excited for the change. And this really helps, because if you have the editors and the authors fearing the change, you'll have a lot of resistance, and it'll be much more challenging to do a successful migration. By using automated data validation and leveraging a comprehensive launch checklist, we were able to have every single launch go smoothly. No reverts, no rushes to fix things on launch day. We had zero downtime, no loss of revenue on any launches. Part of the challenge when dealing with storied organizations is that they have content that go back 10, 20, even 50 years at times. And this content wasn't necessarily written with modern requirements in mind. I mean, if 20 years ago you had asked like a restaurant reviewer to ensure that he fills in all the JSON LD data, they'd have asked you like, where do I put this in Dreamweaver, right? That's a joke for the older folks in the room. If you don't get it, just ask someone with gray hair. But when you have thousands of reviews like this, manually going back and adding all of that structured data, in most cases, it's economically impossible. If only there was like some technology that could do this for us, you know, and I think it'd be even better if this was a technology everyone was tired of hearing about. That's right, you can turn your unstructured data into structured data with the use of the blockchain. Nah, I'm just kidding. The blockchain is still completely useless. It's AI. We used AI. So using an LLM, we were able to quickly and very cost effectively create all of the structured data needed for the site. And this allowed it to increase its search engine visibility dramatically. And this empowered our media by letting them leverage all of their historical content into the new publishing realities. So let's dive right into the migration. Across the next 4 slides, you'll see every brand that we migrated. not going to bore you by going over every single site, but rather I'll just total things up. So over the course of these 16 sites here, we wrangled over 200,000 posts. I wasn't sure how to give everyone a sense of scale, so I asked AI, and it told me that 200,000 posts was enough reading material to keep you busy on a deserted island for years. Now, this does presuppose you have Wi-Fi on this deserted island, but, you know. We transferred 1.15 million source images. Sorry, I didn't ask AI for a fun fact for that. You'll need to think about it yourself. But if that wasn't enough, we ported over 46,000 recipes. And so I was told no one on the team had to Google what's for dinner during the course of the project. But I'll be honest, I'm not sure that's true. Pretty sure Stan just still ordered takeout. For good measure, we added 1,000 reviews, everything from restaurants, hotels, other travel recommendations. But speaking of big numbers, the sites collectively draw over 6 million monthly active users. And to give you guys a sense of scale, that's basically the population of Sydney visiting one or more our media properties every month. I'm sure folks from other parts of Australia also visit the sites, but you know. Now, I gave you a sense of the scale of the migration, but what about the actual business outcomes? As much as I'm a tech guy, I love tech, if the tech doesn't deliver meaningful business results, none of it's worth it. And our media's goals here, they weren't just to have a better technical foundation. Moving to WordPress allowed our media to transform their entire approach to creating content. The digital teams for each of the brands, they were now empowered to create the content they needed for their respective audiences. They were not just able to create better content, but they could do it at a pace that's required to compete in the crowded digital publishing landscape. Now, some of you in the crowd may be a bit more bottom line focused, and one of the immediate impacts was a 50% reduction in editorial publishing time. Posts that took an hour to create were now being done in less than 30 minutes. So this means that by the time we even launched the last site, their team had already saved over $250,000 in increased efficiency. And those savings, they're not just, overall, they're not just for publishing efficiencies. It doesn't include the hosting costs, it doesn't include the licensing reduction costs, doesn't include the reduced maintenance overhead, and it doesn't include any of the developer efficiency increases. Now, I said I was going to focus on the business results, but I wouldn't be a good CTO if I didn't just sneak something in here based on our team's technical improvements. So I don't know if anyone wants to guess when the migration happened. Now, as a final recap, to help publishers succeed in their digital transformations, what you need to do is really focus on tangible business results. Prototype early with active planning. Use WordPress's strengths to build a solid foundation. And you need to really future-proof by building flexible components that can be maintained. That wraps it up for me. I really want to thank the WordCamp Asia organizers for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about our media's story. And hopefully we have a bit of time for questions. I think we definitely do.